The world is ending. But these two goofballs don't care. Taylor and Kyle Opalk aren't here to help you. They're here to talk about nerdy stuff. Welcome to the apocalypse.
Alrighty. Hello. Got another episode of the podcast today. What movie did we watch this time around, Taylor?
Santa Claus 2.
Yes, starring Billy Bob Thornton.
Dude,
no, that's Bad Santa.
Yeah, that's Bad Santa. You think of it's the Tim Allen fucking.
Oh, Tim Allen.
Yeah.
Yeah. We watched Overlord, the 2018 World War II zombie movie.
I actually remember almost going to see this in theaters, and I saw something.
In the theater.
Oh, Jesus Christ. And I don't remember what I saw instead. And I wonder if I made the right decision or not. This
After
is one of those
having
movies.
seen it at home, how do you feel?
I'm kind of glad I didn't see it. I didn't really.
Okay.
I gave this to fast forward to the end, a 2 out of 5.
Okay.
It in part mainly is because it was so much wasted potential that I'm kind of like frustrated about it more than I think maybe that it's bad. But I like at the halfway point I was like probably leaning more towards like 3.5, but by the end it was like a 2.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
It was inverse for me. So I gave it a 3 out of 5. I thought by the end I liked it more because that's when, it got into the fun, juicy bits of what this movie could have been.
Yeah, and
why did you like the beginning half more than the latter half?
Because I thought the opening sequence was a really intense and like high energy. See, the thing that I really liked about this movie was a lot of the action set pieces were very frantic and high energy and like very scary and like I don't know, I say unpleasant in a complimentary way. Like it's their plane going down and like kind of just this chaotic nature and the reaction of I really like the point of view character a lot. It's very sympathetic to like kind of have someone so like kind of shell shocked by what's happening. That would be kind of like how I felt in a lot of those moments. And, but so in the early parts, I found the war stuff done really, really well. And I don't know, there was just enough momentum that I was intrigued of where it was going, and I was like really kind of grossed out by the evil Nazi stuff, but it reminded me of like Return to Castle Wolfenstein, so I was like really excited.
Yes.
And I don't know, I thought the location was pretty cool. I it's kind of unfair, but I don't know his name, but like Kurt Russell's son, the guy who plays the main sergeant,
Wyatt Russell. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like him in all like basically everything I see him. I think he does a good job, whether or not the movie I like or not. Yeah, I don't know. I could see they were doing a good job of like doing like they teased it like kind of early by going in and sneaking back out of really just seeing kind of what the stakes are in the movie, but then I realized that they just kind of cheat a lot of the time. His friend gets like, I don't know if I
okay.
want to
Let's slow down a little bit.
Yeah,
here.
I don't want to get too ahead, but that's.
I want to go back to talking about the opening sequence because Lauren and I absolutely loved it. It was really cool. So the movie opens where this squad of soldiers, World War II guys, are all on a plane and they're gonna paratroop in, and they're just kind of shooting the shit, insulting each other, just brotherly bonding as those as they do in the movies. And of course, because they're flying over hostile territory, eventually they start getting shot at, and the scene just becomes very intense. As they're going down, they're trying to like get their paratrooper things hooked on, and they're trying to go out, and then it blows up, and it's it's just like shit hits the fan. But it was really well done. It was a very compelling scene. It was really cool.
What I think the stuff that why I think it worked pretty well is that it's very unexpected. It like at any moment it can be like the action can turn back on, and I think that's what the war stuff worked really well for me. And well, in that scene is like you never know when it's gonna kind of. It felt like an active war scene. Like even when the action gets quiet again, it's just like 2 seconds later, and all of a sudden fighting for your life, and then it gets quiet again. And even at the very end when he finally gets, he falls into the water and he doesn't die and he's swimming back up. Like I don't know if this is intentional or not, but like he's up inside the parachute, kind of trapped in it, and he gets a knife and cuts through it. And it's like this kind of like metaphorical rebirth into like he died on that plane and now he's in hell, right? Like that's kind of, I don't know if that's...
Oh, that is an awesome observation. That's so cool. I love that.
That to me was kind of this, the older version of him who wouldn't even kill a mouse had to die. And this is like the new, kind of thing. And I feel like that was an intentional kind of metaphor. And I thought that was really cool. So that stuff really early caught my eye. And I was like, oh, okay, they're not just doing the bare minimum here. There's some cool stuff going on.
That's a really, really good way to put it. I absolutely also clocked that they were taking things seriously and they were adding details that really grounded it all, which is a note that I made where I forgot this was a horror movie until the horror stuff like started happening again. It's like, oh yeah, this isn't just a World War II espionage film. This is supposed to be like a zombie horror Nazi experiment kind of movie. So, between the opening sequence and as you said, the main character, the plane kind of crashes, or it doesn't crash. He ends up jumping out. And so I guess to reel it back just a little bit again, I was surprised at the quality of this movie. For the most part, from what I read, this movie was fairly mixed. A lot of people liked it for what it was. It was, it's not the best thing ever, but people were like, yeah, this is a pretty good movie. I did not expect the quality that we got from the opening sequence. I was like, wait, this movie feels really legit. Like this could be a scene in Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan or something. Like it felt really good.
Yeah, I agree. When I say 2 stars, it still doesn't even feel like it's fair. Like that's just more of on the story front, but like I still think it's a really well done.
We'll get to that.
And I think all the performances were mostly pretty compelling and interesting. And like, yeah, I think it is way better than I think the mixed reception led me to believe going in.
I think that has also to do with the fact that this movie is quite a mixed bag. It is very much split 50-50 between a, quiet espionage thriller and then, outright B-movie horror stuff. There's a very clear divide, and this movie puts that together, and that's what creates this kind of confusion, and I have some comments on that as well. But in regards to just the beginning and how it was all done, like you said, he paratroops out, and the camera even follows him as he goes. He jumps out of the plane, and he's like flipping around, and it's very disorienting, and he's trying to get his parachute, and he finally pulls it, but then he lands in the water, and he's got, 60, 80, 100 pounds of gear on him, so he just starts sinking to the bottom of this lake. He gets out the knife, and they actually show underwater him cutting the strings with the knife, which is just little details like that. It really, really, really impressed me. And he swims to the top after he gets his gear off, and he cuts off the parachute, but the parachute landed above him in the water, so it created this big, an additional barrier that he has to, pull, he as you said, he's almost rebirthed. He surfaces, but because the parachute is there, it's stretched across his face, kind of like a plastic bag over someone's mouth, so you can see he's gasping for air, and he's having to deal with this parachute on his face, and so then he has to cut through that, much like a placenta, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is very much a rebirth sequence, and I wonder if, obviously I missed the metaphor there because I tend to do that with these movies. I take them a little bit more literally and critique their more, the technical aspects. But regardless, it all works so well that even if I missed the metaphor, I still really heavily appreciated the level of detail that a guy just paratrooping to the ground and trying to survive that is a huge ordeal. And that's the kind of stuff that's often glossed over in a movie or a show. They'll just like, oh, he jumped out the plane, and then the next scene he's like on the ground cutting the parachute wires, walking around and like figuring out what to do next. There's a lot of turmoil jumping out of a plane as a paratrooper that doesn't really get highlighted in a lot of things. And so it was cool to see that they really let you know that it's like just getting to the ground is a really fucking hard thing to do.
Yeah. So
I really like that.
Yeah, and it doesn't really kind of give him too much after that, but yeah, they said a lot in the very beginning without like kind of a lot of dialogue, and I did think it was cool that the people up there, a couple do survive and they do meet back up, because at first I was like, oh, were those all just like kind of stereotypes and being thrown away? I was like, no, then they do show up later, so.
Yeah, there ends up being kind of 4 main characters,
roughly.
There's Wyatt is their captain, the main dude whose name
Boyce.
Remember, it was a name that's Boyce. Yeah, it's like close to Boyd, but it's not Boyd. Yeah. It's Boyce.
And then there's
Boyce is our main protagonist, and then there's the snarky
New York guy.
New York guy. And then they eventually find and rescue this like kind of skinny, dweeby, quiet dude.
Yeah. It's John, I think is the name of the guy who's like Boyce's actual friend in the beginning. He says like that, they'll meet up once they get to the ground. Like that's who he rescues in the lab. But then there's also the camera guy as well, whose name I can't remember, but he's kind of like a good looking dude. But he's the other one. He's like the first one who kind of, I don't know if you remember. I mean, you should remember.
Yeah.
The
camera guy.
Yeah.
The camera guy was hilarious. Like there was a scene right in the beginning where, Wyatt Russell. I guess we'll just try to use their real names, even though I'm gonna forget them constantly. Yeah, Corporal Lewis Ford. So Ford is the guy in charge of their platoon. He's like talking to the camera guy because the camera guy's pulling out his camera with a giant flash. They're in enemy territory in the woods, so they're trying to keep a low profile and he jokingly is like, hey, can I see that camera to make sure like it's working right? And he immediately just throws it on the ground and like destroys it. Sorry, I just unplugged my own
badass
headset because I was moving my ear, whatever. And so he like smashes it on the ground. He's like, we're trying to keep a low profile, and then he turns and walks away, and the camera guy like pulls out another camera from his bag immediately and like puts it over his head. Yeah. I was cracking up.
That was pretty funny.
So between just like a subtle joke that lands appropriately and actually made me laugh, and the attention to detail and how intense the opening sequence was, me and Lauren looked at each other. We're like, is this movie about to be fucking insanely good? Like, what the hell? We didn't expect it, but as the movie goes on, it's like, okay, I see where some things are kind of taking it down a notch. I think this guy, maybe I'm jumping the shark by saying this, as a whole, this movie needed to do either just be the World War II espionage movie it could have been, or lean more into the horror stuff and make it happen sooner.
So
because this movie, there was really a hard line. It's basically when they discover this underground Nazi lab where they're experimenting with crazy drugs and doing crazy shit to people, of course. That's when it turns into horror, and it is a very hard line drawn. Like,
so, all right.
Like I said, I forgot it was a horror movie. Then they find this lab. There was the ant, of course, the ant. Like
that's what I want to say. Is that they during this espionage shit, the whole time, Boyce is seeing them like torching civilians and them taking people, executing them and taking their bodies with them. But
that's later.
And then the ant is very like sick and a very like. That's not, people don't sound like that when they're sick. There's a lot of hints throughout the movie that it is more overtly sinister than just, hey, Germany's occupying this French village, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay, so
I think they hint at it a bit more. I will say that once the, like, cat's out of the, like, it's kind of, the way I would actually point it to, you saw Sinner, and maybe From Dusk Till Dawn, but it is kind of, it gives the same kind of energy. Like it's trying to do that thing where it's a movie that's adjacent to horror, and then all of a sudden, once the monster's out of the bag, the movie's all about that till the conclusion. I don't know if you agree or not, but I think it's a not as successful version of those.
I do for the most part. What I want to say is to clarify the plot. The plot is very simple. These paratroopers are trying to drop behind enemy lines to destroy a comm tower. There's a Nazi comm tower that's broadcasting whatever, and they're trying to destroy it. So there's the small platoon of dudes who are trying to get behind the enemy lines, set up their C4, and blow up the tower. That's the whole point of the movie. So they drop down in the middle of the woods because their plane exploded and they had to evacuate. This little group of survivors gets back together. They find each other as they're going through the woods. One of the guys steps on a mine and blows up, which, is probably what you were talking about earlier, where the action will cut, but then it suddenly becomes frantic again because you realize, like, oh yeah, they're in the middle of a war zone. So they're all just kind of shooting the shit, talking to each other, walking through the woods, and there's this open field, and as they walk through the field, one of the guys steps on a mine and blows up, and suddenly they're like, okay, they're prodding the ground with their bayonets, trying to make sure they don't step on mines, and they slowly walk through the field to get out because, oh fuck, it's mine infested, so we have to be careful now. And one of the guys just fucking evaporated. So, it does I kind of forgot where I was going with this. Oh, I was just trying to like give the plot. But they end up through all of this finding this French girl wandering around in the woods. And they end up kind of chasing her down because she runs from them. She doesn't know. I think she knows they're Americans, but doesn't know if they're good or bad or whatever. They kind of chase her down and get information out of her. And they're like, okay, well, we're not here to hurt you. We're trying to help. Like, help us out. And so she leads them to her little village. It's not a village. It's a town. It's a small French town. And she lives with her aunt and little brother. And when they get there, she, of course, says, like, well, my aunt is upstairs in this room, but be careful. She's very sick. So, a little wink of like, oh yeah, this is spooky shit happening. But what I'll say with the aunt, the whole part with the aunt, very underdone. They needed to do more with her as an element of horror and not just a wink to the camera of like, remember, there's supposed to be zombies in this movie, because they did nothing with her at all.
Okay, that's 100% agree with you on that.
Also, the part where you said, like, Boyce ends up finding the Nazis, and there's, like, people that look all fucked up and grotesque, and then they're torching them alive. That doesn't happen until more than halfway through the movie. So the whole movie, from the plane to the ground to the village to them trying to sneak around and avoid Nazi detection.
They do talk also, like, the girl, Chloe, she does talk about them doing stuff in the church. Like, they take people there and that, like, people don't come back out. Like, they do talk about the weird shit happening in the church before that, too.
Yes. So, while true, like I said, the aunt, they briefly show her, but she literally just stays in the room. I thought there was going to be a sequence where she becomes fully infected and comes bursting out, and they have to deal with her. Or, they're all sleeping and one of them wakes up to her just standing over them, staring, anything creepy. They did absolutely nothing with her. She stayed in the room. You heard her wheezing and moaning occasionally. Boyce eventually goes to the room and like peeks his eye through the door, and she just like looks at him over her shoulder, and she's all fucked up looking, and like, she looks like the humpback guy from 300 is who I kept thinking of.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So that's all that happened with her. And it's like, why, her inclusion in the movie was strictly to remind you that this is an incoming threat.
Yeah, you're right.
But that's very weak. That's a really, really
and to be honest, there's a couple of times that I feel like they have this repeated problem where a character exists exclusively as a plot. Like, it is not a character that lives in this universe. It's used to move the story or to because I think his friend John, when we get to it, how he rescues him, that character didn't even need to be in the movie. Totally only used to remind you that awful things can happen, and I don't know. It's fucking
he was. That's a good point too. He was pretty useless. I actually don't even remember what happened to the camera guy. Oh, he gets shot when they capture the Nazi dude. and they let him free.
He's actually. I'm like, you should remember him.
He's the first one.
Yeah, it's a very like. There's an actual sick action sequence with him. Yeah, you remember him.
Yeah, that part is pretty wicked.
Wicked. So, wow, how British of you.
What ends up happening is they go to this village. They kind of split up for some reason. I can't even remember why. Wyatt is just like, you two go out and try to, I think he tells them to go try to like reconvene with the rest of the platoon at the drop point or wherever you're supposed to be. Go see if anyone's alive. So then there's only 2 guys left in the house, and that's our main guy, Boyce, and then the Sergeant Ford, Lieutenant Ford, whatever. They're in the house. Then the Nazis show up, knocking on the door. They get let in. The 2 Americans are hiding up in the attic, looking through the floor slats, seeing what's going on. Of course, our main French girl is like kind of pretty, so then it's the implication that she's been like giving sex to this main Nazi guy in order to placate him so that they don't fuck with her anymore because her aunt is sick in the attic. She's got a little brother.
They're threatening to take they're threatening to take Paul away if she didn't comply.
Paul is the little brother. So yeah, there's that sequence, and then she says no, and then he's like yes, and then starts to attempt to rape her, and then the Americans step in and of course don't let that happen. So they end up capturing this guy, and of course this actor, he's always the villain. He's a good asshole. His name it doesn't mean anything to me. I don't even recognize it. Pilu Asbake.
In the movie or in real life?
In real life, that's his name. But he played most famously Euron Greyjoy in Game of Thrones. He is the Iron Islands cousin who shows up and ends up killing the Iron Islands dad.
That's where I
yes.
Okay, I knew I recognized him, but I couldn't for the life of me place him.
Yeah, so that's where I know him mostly from. So he's the main Nazi guy. They end up capturing him and torturing him for a while, trying to get information out of him. This is where, the nitpicky side of me comes in, and there's some things that bothered me with the torturing stuff.
Okay, yeah. So let's just talk about this section of the movie now. Whatever random. So the idea that like those are the events that take place there. So let's just talk about anything that comes to mind. So go ahead with your nitpicky side. I want to hear what you're, because I'm feeling a little nitpicky myself today. Yeah.
Okay. So of course, I knew something like this was going to happen as soon as the lieutenant says, hey, you two go out and recon and try to link up with the other guys. Immediately, I'm like, okay, their numbers are getting thin. They're writing this sequence to make the 2 guys who are still in the house have greater odds to overcome because there's less numbers now. So we're going to have more of a conflict if there's less people to control everything. And of course, that happens. The 2 guys get sent out, and then immediately the Nazis show up at the house, and now only Lieutenant Ford and Boyce are the ones there to deal with this. They do end up capturing him, bringing him up into the attic. They're punching him, trying to get information out of him. They kind of string him up. Then the 2... Fuck, am I misremembering things? The 2 guys come back?
I think this is when they show up. Before he gets strung up, but after the like conflict with Chloe and the lead Nazi guy.
Yes, you're right. Okay.
So it's like that is when, because that they help him string him up because Boyce is uncomfortable with the like literal torture of this guy. So you're not misremembering. It's just like that's just when they show up. It is my memory of it too. It's not like very...
Yeah. Okay, so they leave the house, then the Nazis show up, and then they come back to the house, and they're like, oh, you have a guy here to torture. Okay. Fuck, I can't even... Why is that part so weird
because
in my head?
The weirdness is... Okay, the reason I have also the time I'm a little confused on is because at some point, Boyce also is out on his own to do something, but he... in a panic of getting caught, jumps in the dead body cart and gets brought into the lab and finds out this is all the shit, goes crazy. And then he gets John out of the lab with him. And this is like where it's just very clear that and you see some insane fucking body horror shit in there. This is where we reference the video game Return to Castle Wolfenstein. They lean into the Nazi experimentation stuff. But I don't remember when this moment where he does his like little stealth mission and sneaks back out happens in the timeline before he convinces everyone else we need to go there instead of to the top of where the tower is to blow up. We need to go underground and blow it up instead to save the people that are in this lab. We need to destroy this lab. And so like that sequence happens before I think
Okay, so
he gets
so this house is a home base, and the characters kind of have to come and go randomly.
Unfortunately. And so it makes it hard to keep straight.
Yeah, there's at least 3 or 4 different times where 1 or 2 characters leave the house and go to do something, but then end up coming back to the house, and it's during these times where stuff happens, and it's even though I saw the movie 2 days ago, it's like kind of muddy.
So I think we're not gonna have a good time articulating this sequence, but it doesn't matter. We know the order that it happens, so we might get the order of operations a little weird. So if you're being nitpicky, make sure that you remember don't pick apart because of timeline, because we aren't very clear on it.
Yeah, I'm mostly just trying to like chronologically keep this in order, but it's not even relevant. The part I want to talk about is the torture scene. Obviously, Boyce is he's our moral North Star. He's the really good guy. It's as you mentioned in the very beginning of the movie, one of the guys is making fun of him because he wouldn't kill a mouse. He captured it and then released it. And
he does share a story that 3 months ago he was just at his house mowing the lawn, and then he gets conscripted to go to war. So this is a civilian ass dude.
Yeah, he's a regular ass dude. He's an ass dude for sure.
For sure.
Just like me.
Okay. Yes. Of course. Well documented.
So Lieutenant Ford is getting nasty with the torture. He puts on some brass knuckles that's got like a knife built in, and he's punching this Nazi guy and trying to, how many people are in the tower? Where's the whatever? And he, doing typical torture shit.
Yeah, because he does question him about what are you doing in that, like in the lab. So yes, this is Boyce would have gone before, just to confirm the comment. This is after he's come back and told him, like, hey, they're doing some weird experimentation. I saw a lady's severed head speak to me with no body.
God, that was so cool.
Yeah. So I'm positive when the 2 guys go out to meet up, Boyce was supposed to meet up with them, but gets sidetracked trying to get to them, goes through the whole base.
That's right.
Makes a shortcut on the way out, comes back to Ford, tells him about it, then the other dudes come back.
Then let's do that. Let's talk about that, because that sequence is pretty cool.
At
this point, there's been a bunch of character building. They, the whole movie up until this point of Boyce going and finally getting into the lab, you're about 45 minutes into this hour 40 long movie.
Yeah.
So we're basically halfway into the movie before any actual Overlord horror movie stuff starts happening. Boyce ends up, like you said, the 2 guys who left originally are not coming back. So Lieutenant Ford has this Nazi captured. He's been beating the shit out of him, so he's not really in a state that they're worried he's going to escape or anything. And he's like, you need to leave and go find those guys because they're not coming back. So go recon with them.
No, that's not it either, Kyle.
My fucking God. Okay, I don't know.
That's why I'm like, don't worry. I don't think, remember, the Nazi does not get captured until after Ford comes back with all this information to tell Ford. Then those 2, and that's why Boyce felt compelled to kidnap, like to intervene, because he knows what those Nazis are capable of, but Ford doesn't. So then he jumps the gun to protect Chloe. Ford is annoyed. Is like, why did you, you shouldn't have intervened. Now we have to, do something about it. They just lock him up in the attic with them. Then the 2 dudes show up back at the home base and Boyce, where were you? You never showed up. And then Boyce tells him this, is freaking out telling the story. Then it escalates to torture during this moment.
Good Lord. Overlord.
So there was the moment everyone leaves one time. Boyce goes through the Nazi torture dungeon. The other 2 dudes were just chilling wherever and come back home with no exciting news.
All right. What fucking yeah, all right. Order of events aside, let's just get into the sequence of Boyce finding the lab. That's what we're talking about now, because for the most part that is the next big kind of
he sneaks into a truck that's got a bunch of dead bodies from that village, from that town.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So Boyce is out in the woods, kind of rooting around, trying to figure out what's going on, and he kind of gets caught, right? Like he finds this road, and Nazi trucks are driving right by, and he's like laying on the ground, scared shitless, and then a German shepherd, presumably a Nazi dog,
is chasing
just
him.
Finds him and starts barking and chasing him. And as one of these trucks is driving by, Boyce just jumps onto it and rolls into the back, hoping for the best, and it turns out it's full of dead bodies. So now, instead of going to recon and then go back home, he is thrusted into the heart of this Nazi lab and comm tower, which this lab is underneath the comm tower, where they need to blow up. This is the part that's very much like Castle Wolfenstein, where I was actually enjoying it.
Yeah, this is, I think, my favorite part of the whole movie is the first visit into, and kind of seeing it all for the first time. I think is awesome.
But there was something happened that I was able to articulate talking to Lauren about it afterwards, where the sequence was cool. I loved I thought the set was really well designed.
Yeah.
It felt like honestly, it was just Return to Castle Wolfenstein as a movie. It was really cool. The dungeon stuff and the experiments. He ends up, as we mentioned, or Taylor mentioned just previously, he finds this woman's severed head with the spinal cord intact on this lab table propped up by stuff, and it's like, it looks like it's being experimented on. And this woman is saying, like, please help me, please. And it's just her head and her spine on a table.
And she, like, turns her eyes to look at him. So, like, she's got,
she's speaking in French as well. Please help, please. And, of course, he's, like, panicking and freaking out and, like, stepping backwards, tripping over himself. Then he ends up in this room, and these Nazis come in from the other way, so he has to hide. And it's a very video gamey where, like, there's a perfect little, destroyed part of the wall that he can, like, tuck himself in, and it's this perfect little nook that he can hide behind. It felt like the stealth part of a video game,
and
they give you the hiding spot.
And there's the, like, gross sack that there's people in that he, like, was unzipping, and then this, like, black bile just, like, pours out when he tries to, like, unzip one. And I like that he, like, attempts to try to, like, help these people, but then just sees the state and just, like, freaks the fuck out and just keeps, like, going deeper in, because he wants to get out so bad. Like, he has no idea what's going on, neither does the audience, and it's, like, really scary as he gets deeper in there.
Yeah, the sacks with the people in them was very reminiscent of the Uruk-hai from Lord of the Rings being born. Very, very similar. Of course, placenta adjacent. But yeah, as he unzips one of these bags, because you can tell there's people in them because they're kind of moving, and I think they're even moaning in there. You can hear them.
Yeah.
But he unzips it, and one of their heads comes out, and it's got this mask, like, strapped to it. It can't talk. It's got these goggles on, so you can't really see its eyes, but you can see its skin is all bubbly and nasty looking. Kind of in the same vein that the ants is in the attic. Yeah. And in the same way that Boyce saw one of the guys being incinerated alive. So they're being experimented on. He's trying to save them, but realizes, like, even if I get this person out of here, what the fuck am I doing with them? They have this mask on their face. I don't know if they're going to be intelligible at all. Like, so yeah, he keeps pushing deeper into the lab. Sorry, I have to pick my nose here for a second.
Very important. Oh, thank you for being honest.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, because it made me lose my train of thought. I needed a tissue. Yeah, so this part, I had almost an epiphany when he fought the actual zombie for the first time, right? So Am I missing? Whatever, dude. The chronology of this movie is so jumbled in my head. When he ends up running out of the lab and there's the zombie chasing him. No, that's a different character. Dude, I should just stop talking. You should take over. I don't know what I'm saying.
So, and then he pushes through, and this is, if my memory serves right, this is where he finds John with a gas mask, like, kind of over his mouth so he can't talk, but and then, like, a pipe from the ceiling is very much, like, metal sutured to his skin. and he does eventually kind of get the mask off, and John seems like very much like awake, cognizant, and like okay. He's just like wants out very desperately, and he pulls this pipe out, and this deep needle is yanked out in a way that like I think the guy is super injured, but they don't worry. He's not. He's totally fine. This injury does not matter in any way, shape, or form. Never comes up. And then
it doesn't even slow them down. Like he's helping him out initially. You know, he's kind of limping around, you know, because he's injured from having this giant, 6-inch needle.
And he's selling that he's very wounded. The very first scene.
But then by the time they get out of the place, like he's fine enough that he can just run.
And eventually they realize that there's somebody in there, and they're trying to get out, and they find kind of like a sewer grate, and they kick it open. And I'm like, oh, dude, how's that guy going to sneak out of there? And he's totally fine. Doesn't even matter.
Yeah, they find the sewers and they escape. Yeah, that's something that always bothers me. You know, this is like a Chekhov's gun faux pas where they show this thing and then literally nothing happens with it. Why even have this guy be injured? Just have him fucking handcuffed to a pipe if it's completely meaningless what happened to him. You know, they're trying to illustrate the torture these guys do, but they had so much opportunity. Like, what kind of crazy shit was being injected in his body? Or were they extracting something from him? Or, you know, like, is he gonna... Anything could have happened, and nothing did. It was bizarre.
But that's when I did want to touch on but during this sequence that he gets kind of like a sneak peek of that they're injecting some kind of drug into people, and it's like either animating the dead, making them super strong. It's not super clear, but it's obvious that it's more or less kind of like as a pop culture person that you think zombie. It is injected into people after they die, and it causes them to kind of go again. And so he steals one syringe with this kind of the red liquid and puts it in his jacket. So he does see someone kind of go crazy on it in some jail cell. And then he brings John and some of that drug with him, and they get John on the table in their home base, and that's why he's not participating in the violence with the Nazi dude. Is that eventually when he comes back, he's just in recovering off screen.
Right, yeah.
But that stuff is done really well. The set looks really good. The atmosphere is just so oppressive. Like, I was like, there's no way he's getting out of this. Like, I was truly like, I had no idea. And like they kind of show you how serious these kind of zombies are. They are really strong, really powerful, but are destructive, and like, yeah, they're setting up the threat pretty well in this moment, and this is as good as the movie gets for me.
Yeah, and I do like that they found the sewer, so it gives them an alternative sneaky path in, very Dark Souls-esque, where you get far enough forward where you can kick down the ladder so that you can shortcut it later, and it's the same thing here. It's like, he did all the hard work of getting in there and then kicks out the sewer grate and finds that there's a kind of a secret entrance, and so they're able to sneak back in later. Yeah, I was pretty disappointed that they didn't do anything with John's injury. There was so much opportunity to have this guy. They even specifically mentioned, because later in the movie, one of the characters, we'll get to it, but he injects himself while he's still alive because he's really injured, and he's like, fuck it, I'm just going to stab myself with the syringe, see what happens. And the Nazi doctor's like, we haven't done any experiments on living people. We don't know what this does yet. In my head, I'm like, why wouldn't that have been what John was for? That big needle in his gut, maybe it could have been like literally dripping just, parts per million of this syringe, of this
I
this
assumed
serum.
That's what was going on.
Yeah, and he was going to transform eventually, or have something, maybe turn into some grotesque monster. Like, you literally have a living being here that you've captured. You're a Nazi, and he's an American. Obviously, he's someone you'll experiment on because you don't give a fuck because he's the enemy. Like, but blinking red light of like, opportunity here, do something, and they just didn't. I don't know why. Thinking about it, they almost, I guess they did. they almost didn't need to even inject the photographer. They could have had John turn into this monster, because the implication could be that he was being slowly injected with, in his stomach. Right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. They could have done something, but they didn't. It was a very long-winded point. Pretty frustrating to see, have a live person that's being experimented on get to escape, and there's just no consequence to it. This character is in the plane in the beginning, disappears. They find him in the lab. Now he's part of the crew, and
he's just an extra body for when they at the end need a dude to shoot a gun. And he's fully healed the rest of the movie. No complications. He's fine. After I want to be very clear about it is like a bone thickness needle that went from like that. It was so deep, deep.
It looked like a pencil is how I would describe it. It was about that thick and that long, just a pencil of a needle jabbed into his stomach. And it was sutured onto him so that it was really hard. He had to like rip out the sutures, pull this needle out. I mean, it was like they did a full surgery on this kid, and there's no reason for it, apparently.
It was just for fun.
Nothing was happening to him.
They were just torturing him for fun. It was,
I guess. Lame. Which brings me to something I did want to talk about, which was how I felt at this point in the movie. This is strange, so I'm just gonna articulate this the best I can, and maybe hopefully get some of your insight as to how I'm feeling about it. You mentioned Sinners, which is very similar, right? Like, what I felt about this movie, seeing the torture stuff, seeing the zombies, it didn't excite me or scare me in the same way that like a 28 Days Later infected zombie does. And I was wondering why I felt this way. And I realized it's because Nazis themselves are so horrendously monstrous that they are already monsters. Like, Nazis are so vile and disgusting, and they do such horrific acts of violence against people. This whole torturing underground lab thing, it basically happened in real life. The Nazis would capture people, and they would do this kind of stuff to them. This wasn't even like a movie thing. The only movie part about it was, the injection that would reanimate the corpse. But for the most part, like, this is what Nazis actually did to people. They are so fucking despicable and disgusting that I was like, this just kind of feels like a bastardized version of a World War II movie, where they would find the lab that the Nazis are doing experiments on people in. Like, you didn't even need the zombies, because Nazis themselves are so despicable that, like, you want them to be killed and butchered like animals,
I see what you're saying, and I think there's a lot of good points you bring up, because I agree for the most part, and what I could say as something to consider is that that's why this feels almost like it isn't a big difference, because they're already so nasty. They're just taking them to like kind of more logical extremes of like, and then they weaponize it, and like the horrors of and kind of seeing that is just like, I don't know, a more extreme version of what they really were doing. And you could argue that it like kind of takes away from like the actual, what if like you portrayed it what they really did and how fucked up and evil that is almost more scary than a like, oh, and then they made zombies. Well, that's obviously fake, and is like all like kind of a
yeah, maybe that's a good point too that I hadn't considered, is that like weirdly enough, it had the opposite effect. Seeing a zombie actually made it less scary, because in real life, these people were tortured and experimented on, and they would end up just dying horrific deaths. Whereas in this movie, like, they get to come back to life as this powerful zombie, and it's all goofy. And yeah, it had the opposite effect on me, where I was not. I don't know. I just.
So it's
I was
because...
having this weird thing in my head while watching this. I'm like, I like this lab. It's reminding me of Castle Wolfenstein. I think all of this works better as a video game, and it probably should have just been left as one. But yeah, like why is this not affecting me in a way?
I
It's because
think the war
yeah.
stuff was done so well, it works against the horror angle of it, because now you've kind of bought into the war stuff and it's being kind of handled so well that it already feels kind of like a war movie, and so it feels more grounded and realistic, because that's kind of how it feels, right? It feels very grounded and stuff, and that so you'll get kind of like two reactions, is then the zombie stuff feels like such a juxtaposition, it works better, or it feels like a disservice to the great war movie you've been telling to me up to this point. And I think we fall in the that latter camp, where it's just the war stuff was done so well that this horror stuff just like doesn't feel, it isn't doing the story any it's doing the story a disservice in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, that is the best way to put it. The movie was so grounded in reality that when the horror stuff came up, it made the movie goofy. It didn't make it scarier. It didn't take the sinner's angle where like, oh shit, it's getting kind of creepy. It did the opposite. It lightened the whole movie and it made it. So in my Letterboxd review, I basically said what I just said, where I was like, it made me realize that Nazis themselves are so monstrous that like, you know, watching these guys fight as a Nazi zombie versus a regular zombie, there's no difference, because a regular zombie is as repugnant and scary and nasty as a undead
and
one
the movie
coming back
does
to life, right? There's no difference.
Go out of its way to show that the foot soldiers in this army are despicable, racist, like viewing the French people as subhuman. So like they make sure you view not just the leader. The Nazis weren't just doing their jobs here. They love doing this to these people.
Yeah, they're reveling in it, right? And again, that takes away from the fact that a zombie is a mindless corpse brought back to life. So really, those are the better versions of Nazis.
Though to be fair, Kyle, the dudes they're reanimating aren't the Nazis. Those are the innocent French people that they're doing these horrible, or the American soldiers. Yeah, because they're taking the dead bodies of like, who are you going to like experiment on? Your own people or the enemy that they're invading? Because that's what they're doing. They're kidnapping the French people and torturing and killing them, then taking their dead bodies and juicing them up to turn them into zombies, or test the juice on the living people. And that's what the doctor was saying.
I kind of missed that. I think so. The part specifically. There's two scenes now I'm thinking of where they could have illustrated a lot better that it was the French civilians they're doing this to. The first part is when Boyce ends up in that truck and it's full of dead bodies. All of the bodies are in the exact same clothes, which made me think, oh, these are like dead Nazi soldiers that they've recovered the bodies of. Because if this is a truck full of civilians, they would all be wearing civilian clothes, different outfits, different colors.
You know what?
They're
You're
all
right.
wearing gray shirts and gray pants.
I think you're correct, because then the Nazis doctor even talks about needing a soldier that would last 1,000 years. But so I think that they kidnap there's probably a mixture of them, but I think the actual super soldiers that the movie's like putting as the monsters that are like chasing them and stuff, those are probably the actual Nazi, like the Germans. And they so I think you're more right. I think that maybe some of like they're probably trying to make the living super soldier serum, and they're testing that on the French people, and that's what's making them sick and then them killing. But like they're reanimating the dead Nazis into like weapons still, but they're just kind of mindless. But they're trying to do. Anyway, I think you get my point, and I get your point.
So yeah, even that is a muddy part of the script where, okay, they mentioned, overtly say that they're experimenting on people, they're taking them into the church and doing stuff, and then they don't come back. Her aunt went to the church and did come back, but then she has turned into this monster. I don't know what she is. She's alive. She's not hostile. She's just stuck in this room and looks fucked up, and then they end up killing her. The Nazis do. Then there's the part where they show another French, like an old guy. He's fucked up in the same way, and he's like, in a wheelbarrow, basically, and the Nazis pick him up and like set him over against a wall, and then they torch him with a flamethrower. So I don't know what those experiments are. Nothing comes to fruition of that. I guess it's another thing of just look how nasty they are.
I think it's like the vague, they're trying to get the serum just right. They were failed experiments on that strain that they were testing.
That goes against what he said later. What the scientist says later when he specifically says we have not done this on living beings yet.
What I think he's saying is that we don't have it like a successful test on a human being yet. Like, this will kill you. We don't have any version that will make this good, is what I interpret. I don't think he was saying it's never been used on a human. I think there was no successful human being tests done yet. You know?
I want... yeah, I
That's,
don't know.
see,
I want to
because,
say
like,
he specifically says we haven't done this on a person yet, on a living person yet.
I remember I had it in my notes that it was no successful test on any humans yet. So, like, I
guess that would explain why the aunt might have been taken to the church, killed, zombified, and she comes back as this,
that's why
thing.
That's what I'm saying is, like, they are testing the what they think might kill somebody on the French, so that when they do have it ready for the living Germans, they would do it on the living Germans, and they're using, the dead Germans with the most, like, what they think might be the best. That's how I envision what the torture is used for, is then to practice a better strain for because, like, as soon as it works on the French, they could kill them, right? They would figure out a way. I don't know. That's how it makes sense in my head.
Yeah, that does make sense. That would explain the ant's behavior. That would, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say that that's what they've been doing, killing the French people, reanimating them, and then they just kind of turn into shambling shells where they're not useful. Because, as you said, the main bad guy, he says, we need 100-year soldiers for a 100-year ruler, implying that, Hitler's going to live forever, or Hitler himself will be reanimated and turn into a zombie that'll control everything, and he needs soldiers that'll be eternal. So that's, like, the idea of why they're even trying to make this serum in the first place.
It's basically the super soldier serum that they always, like, the history books are, it's like, I don't know how true that they were looking for, and this story is like, well, what if they actually did figure out some of that, and their version of it is it's zombifying, like, when you die you just come back as a stronger version. I think, like, on paper that is, like, a fun movie premise, and I just think they didn't blend it in a way that worked because of how well grounded their war movie was. I think they needed to do, as you were talking about, like, make it clear that there's some supernatural elements way earlier, not just like there's a sickness. Then, like, that could have been anything. That could have been just like biochemical warfare, It didn't have to be.
This could have been like a new gas because the fucking Nazis gassed people. This could have been a new gas that's like, it's not killing them, it's just fucking them up really bad.
Yeah, and like that's all within the realm of reality until you see kind of the Nazi lab that it's clear that this is they are successfully reanimating corpses. They're not just, making people sick and dying.
Let's assume, obviously, this guy wanted to make this horror movie, right? So instead of saying, because in my head I'm thinking, well, he needed to lean one way or the other, the war movie or the zombie movie. He wanted to make this zombie movie. That was, like, the whole fun of it.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Assuming he wants to make the best version of this movie possible, there needed to be signs of media. I mean, they could have had a zombie wandering around in the woods as soon as Boyce landed on the ground.
The cold open could have been, like, some of the experiments that they had been doing to let you know that this is happening in this area, and then the next, like, after the, like, Overlord, and then it cuts to them in the plane. Like, to me, that would at least then establish that, like, the core is they're headed into territory, they don't know that there's some supernatural shit going on where they're invading. Like, I don't know, that would make it work instantly for me.
I also had an idea where when Boyce was by himself and ends up in the truck and then going right to the lab, I was like, you could splice this scene into, like, right after Boyce gets out of the water. As soon as he lands at the beginning with his parachute, he's rebirthed in hell now, and he cuts himself out and he gets onto the land and he's, like, recuperating, and he starts running around. He's by himself, and now he finds this road, and then he looks over, and now a German dog is coming after him. And he's got to jump
like
in the
his
truck.
like him surviving, like the very
Yes.
land. Oh, go straight into it. Yeah, I actually like that
like
more.
why not?
Because that's
And
almost that would fit the metaphor. He's like that is hell. Going into that was hell, and then he gets out of hell. He survives that by getting out of hell, and I don't know, that kind of feels like almost more thematically more interesting and better. Damn. Both of those I like a lot more than this.
So in my head, if that's the movie that it actually was, that would have been awesome, because then he goes in, he sees what's going on, he gets out. Then when he gets out and he goes through the sewers, then he maybe stumbles upon this French town. What if, like, you know, his platoon already met up with this French girl and they've been holed up in the house, and maybe he meets the two guys that got sent out to recon. And he encounters the New Yorker and the photographer guy, and they're like, holy shit, Boyce, you're alive? And he's like, yeah, I just got through this crazy shit. And they're like, well, we got this house with this girl back here. Like, let's go to base. And then they, you know, then they maybe go out again. Like,
but the problem was
movie,
the reason that they could even speak French, because he's from Baton Rouge. So, like, that's the French Quarter.
Who cares, man? Just make fucking someone else speak French, you know?
Like, that's true. You could just make that backstory literally any other character.
Yeah. So the movie it needed to be the horror version of itself instantly.
Yeah, I or at least blend those things together. Otherwise, it does. It's not. It didn't. I wasn't swagging on it, as the kids say.
Yep, that is what the kids say. Yeah, and I think, you know, my stance on living zombies or living Nazis versus the zombie Nazis is, if the zombie Nazis feel like the better, nicer version of them, which heavily takes away from the horror.
Because they have no humanity left, at least, so that makes it almost a cleaner, more presentable version of
and
these.
That's why the zombie trope works so well with normal people, because it's such a huge contrast. You know, as an infected in 28 Days Later is so fucking scary, because you see what they are before they're infected. They're just like us. They're people. They have families. They love. They experience things. And then they turn into this abomination. It's horrific and terrifying. And in this, it's like, yes, please kill all your Nazis and turn them into zombies. That's the better version. That's an easier, nicer version of them. So I guess I'm having a really hard time reconciling this thought. I guess it's because I wanted this movie to be a lot more fun and better than it was.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I'm with you on that.
It makes me question, like, okay, so then why, if I'm having this problem of Nazis versus the Nazi zombies, why does the game Wolfenstein work so well? Or Return to Castle Wolfenstein, why is that so successful? And it's like, because the game just kind of starts with you shooting guys, and there's experiments going on, and there's monsters, and it just works better in the game medium where you can do crazier shit.
And Kyle, it could just be you. This could be a personal thing where, like, it doesn't work for you, and that's okay. Like, it doesn't.
But the game works for me.
Have you played any Wolfenstein game though? That's why I'm like,
yeah.
I didn't know that this would work for you or not, just based on, like, I've never. I mean, okay.
I definitely played Return to Castle Wolfenstein. Obviously, it's been about 20 years, so...
That's why I was like, I don't know if I even trust my memories, but I platinum Wolfenstein on the PS4, and that shit fucking takes a while before it gets sci-fi-y.
So, is it very similar to this movie in structure, then? It feels just like a Nazi war game, and then
like, they never get... I mean, it never goes, like, full... the reboot never goes, like, full, kind of like zombies. They do more, like, kind of the super... You eventually go to the moon in the first Wolfenstein game, because Hitler as a plane... Like, so, it does go full crazy by the end. So, yeah, it is very similar in that it just kind of, like, all of a sudden, you find out that it is supernatural by the, like... Act 3. It is not creeping up and kind of implying it, like, you don't get any, like, plasma coil guns in it or anything like that. So
yeah, you know, I just think it's the structure of this movie specifically, and that the big part of it is the movie being so grounded for so long, and then it turns into the zombie thing, and the zombie half made the war half a lot worse, and vice versa. The war half made the zombie half not nearly as fun. So, yeah, this movie, this is one of the rare times I think where after talking about it, I feel worse about the movie. Usually we end up like upping our scores by the end. But
it's because I'm normally not very particularly critical about this stuff, and I always come at movies from an angle you don't. So then if I bring the stuff that maybe you didn't think about as bad is now making the stuff that you were already on the fence on, you're like, oh wait, that is maybe doesn't work as well as I thought now that you present it this way.
Yeah.
So normally I usually bring ways that movies are better than you think instead of ways that movies are worse than you think.
Right.
I think that's partially it.
And this probably could have worked better as a TV show as well, where you have a few episodes establishing that it's, this is war-torn France, and then it creeps into the horror stuff for the latter half of the season. That might have worked better, but this movie, it was too short, but it also felt long, but that's also because the movie was, there's just basically a hard cut in the middle of when it becomes horror, and that's when the lab is discovered. It's just not well done. It's not well put together, these two elements.
I mean, I'll tell you,
both halves,
this is the
both
exact
halves
same,
weaken the other half.
This is the exact same review I gave Sinners. I gave it 2 stars. I felt the exact same way coming out of that. Except that I think Sinners is like a more technically better made movie, but I don't find it's as entertaining to me. Both of these movies, like I enjoyed Overlord more than Sinners, if I'm being honest. Like I think I had more fun in the parts that are fun.
That's crazy.
To me.
Yeah, I didn't have any of these issues I did with Sinners that I am having with
and
Overlord.
I think most people would agree with you. I'm in the outlier there, but I think that you can point to an example of that type of movie working, which I think helps. I just didn't.
If we can tangent on Sinners a little bit, as an example of, as you're saying, why it works versus doesn't work, the stakes are a lot lower in Sinners versus the stakes in Overlord. These guys are dropping behind enemy lines in a war-torn country. Like, they're already fighting for their fucking lives immediately. Whereas Sinners, it's like, no, you're just kind of learning who these guys are, and yeah, they're struggling in a racist Louisiana, but the stakes are just generally lower. They're just trying to open a bar for black folk, they're not trying to topple a Nazi regime. So when it does escalate to horror, it feels a bit more natural, where in this case, as we've reiterated over and over, it doesn't work nearly
because
as well.
Like what I'm hearing is you need it to be much further away from horror to make that kind of genre shift work for you. Whereas like I kind of like the Overlord is already so close to horror that like adding a horror element isn't as jarring. I think there's 2 ways to interpret it, and I think that's more of a taste. Like that is a person by person, just like how do you interpret it,
Yeah, that for me is a big downside. Again, in my Letterboxd review, I specifically said that war movies are horror adjacent. So this combo felt redundant, which is why I'm having such a hard time, combining these two and reconciling the issues in my head, is because, a movie, any decent war movie, Platoon or Saving Private Ryan, Apocalypse Now, Full Metal Jacket, they basically are horror movies. It's horrific. And that's illustrated in any war movie you see that's decently well made, even in Hurt Locker, like war is horror, and it's so traumatic. All of the soldiers come out with fucking PTSD. It's insanely hard to go back to your civilian life because it is a literal, it's hell. It's a completely different world. So yeah, to then like add zombies in here, it's like you can't traumatize these people anymore. It's already fucking horrible, so it feels unnecessary.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of the mixed stuff comes in, is just from the get-go. I feel like you make a really compelling point of like why it may never work, because it's just like it doesn't do either genre any favors by mushing those two together, or at least the way that this was done. And I'm sure that like it can be done in a way that you may disagree, but at least the way this one was.
Right, yeah. And I do think there's a cool movie in here where if they start with the Nazi zombie experimental stuff immediately, it sets the tone of the movie in a different way that it would make it more fun and more cohesive. There's definitely a movie that could exist in a war during wartime that has to do with zombies and monsters and whatever, but it just needed to commit harder and have a, I guess better screenplay or script. And this one just didn't
I want to
quite
get
have
through. We still have like half the movie left, and I'd like to get through the rest of this podcast.
I think we've mostly. I feel like we could even wrap up. There's not much else.
Well,
because
what about the scene where the cameraman becomes a fucking like self-suicidal bony zombie thing? That was cool as shit.
Okay, yeah.
That was
the photographer, not the cameraman. The photographer.
Yeah. Yes. That's right.
There was a huge meta surprise where the cameraman himself turned into a zombie. No. Yes. Okay, we'll talk about that sequence. Otherwise, then it's just kind of a little bit cliche. The Nazi boss like escapes and then injects himself while he's alive and turns into the final boss of the movie. Of course, you saw that coming a mile
and then
away as
just
well.
like in freaking 30 Days a Night, they eventually have the two guys, the alpha males brawling, and they both die in the end.
Yep.
Sacrifice.
But yeah, the first scene where we really see what this serum does was very cool. This was the photographer, the war photographer, war journalist. This is after they're torturing the Nazi for a while. They send the photographer up by himself to go, because they've left this Nazi guy, Nazi boss
they're about
hanging.
to execute the plan to move him to a new location, and he's like, "Oh, go bring him down. We're gonna move him."
Yeah. So he's been hanging by his hands overnight. He's got Jesus Christ, a bag over his head. The war photographer goes up there and pokes him, and he basically looks dead, and so he lets him down. And while he's briefly not paying attention, the Nazi boss like trips him, grabs the guy's gun, shoots the war photographer. The other guys come rushing up the stairs, tackle him, get the gun away from him. And they end up
the guy
injecting. Yeah, go ahead.
Just like he bleeds out, and that's when Boyce decides he takes the serum that he brought home with him and tests it out and injects him, and the dude pops up.
Yeah, he's like, "Whoa, hey guys, I feel weird. I feel really good." And he's like poking at his bullet holes that are not really bleeding anymore because he's dead and his heart isn't pumping, presumably. He's like, "Wow, I feel really good. I feel weird." And he stands up, and they're like, "What the fuck?" And he slowly starts becoming grosser. Like then his veins kind of start turning black, and he's starting to get angry. And he's like, "God, my head hurts." And he's like bashing into 2x4s and like breaking, not 2x4s. Sorry, they're like
the support beams in the attic.
The support beams for the attic, and just like breaks through them, smashing them. He's like, "What you doing to me? What's going on?"
And then he like
at one
turns
point
his head.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like he's like trying to like break his own neck. He just like spins his head around slowly, and like the bones or the collarbones and all that stuff start like kind of jutting up near the neck.
He flips his head backwards, and it like
that's right.
It like breaks backwards and flops down, so the back of his head is basically touching his neck, and his collarbone just comes like jutting out, but his skin is still holding it all in. It's not piercing his skin, so it's just his like skeleton is doing really disgusting things, but it's all still wrapped in skin. It's all tight and gross. And then he flips his head back forward, and he's freaking out. "What'd you do?" And he's like picking people up by one hand and choking them, and they end up shooting him a bunch of times. And then he's unfazed by this and turns around and rushes them again. And I can't remember how they actually kill him.
They shoot him in the, then Boyce finally kind of snaps and just like smashes his head in with the butt of a gun. And this was like the first time you've seen him do violence, and he just like kind of breaks.
Right, yes.
And that's when
they like trip him, and then Boyce ends up just bashing his head in. Because later, one of the Nazi zombies literally gets shot through the head and just stands back up.
What
and
I was
fine.
going to say,
so
what I did like about it is even establishing like these aren't just like the zombies where you just got to shoot the head. No, that like shooting them does literally nothing. You can shoot them in the brain and they keep coming. Like you have to just delete them for like explode their bodies. Like so, this serum really truly is eternal life. That there's nothing, whatever it is, it just like. As they saw with that lady, it just needs to like kind of, for the most part, unless obviously you shoot the brain enough, there's nothing left. But like the point being, it's very, very difficult to kill one of these with traditional like weaponry.
Which I wish. So that's another little inconsistency, right? Is that Boyce smashed this guy's head open, right, and his brains are kind of on the floor. But like, is that really different than having a bullet rip through your brain? Like,
no,
why would a bullet through the head not kill them, but bashing the brain in would? I like the idea of this serum truly reanimating a body. Because, zombies are so make-believe that they can write their own rules. And the rule that basically George Romero came up with is, like, you kill the brain and it kills them. But also, if you think about it, like, why would that even make sense? The brain is already dead. They're reanimated corpses, so it's either, like, magic keeping them alive or something else that's controlling their entire body. So why would the brain of
maybe
a dead
it's the serum
thing
itself
kill it more?
that's actually controlling the body. It hasn't. So as long as there's
right. So I liked
left in the thing. Go ahead.
I liked that angle of like, yeah, the brain destroying the brain does not kill these things. So how would you stop one? Like, I would have loved to see a scene where he decapitates one and it keeps running after him. Like that would have been fun.
Yeah.
But then they also established that fire kills these. Now, I think that's a religious thing, right? Like fire is cleansing, fire gets rid of them because, again, it doesn't make any sense
too, though,
why fire would kill it.
Fire also completely consumes the body. So they're like, while you burn, like eventually, like it just dissolves everything. So it's kind of like, in some ways, more destructive than just like shooting in the head, because it's like shooting everywhere at the body at the same time. Like eventually, maybe not in the first second that you get burned, but over the next 30 seconds, the flesh can only take so much before all the blood's gone. You know what I mean?
It makes me wonder what the mechanics of this undead serum are, because it's like, what is being reanimated? Is it the skeleton? So you could skin these things down to their bones and they would still be around? Is it the muscle tissue that's being controlled? Like you said, is it what's left of the blood? Is the blood inside them helping them? So like, why would a headshot not kill it, but fire would? Why would bashing the brains in kill it, but a headshot wouldn't kill it? It's just like, they're trying to do something new, but the rules still aren't established clearly enough, and that's what more time would have done. If they made this a zombie movie much more quickly, they could have established more rules like that. Fuck, we even, as we said, I just remembered, the woman's head talking.
Yeah.
It's just her spinal cord. So another point for like, why would fire kill it? If the headless fucking, if just the head is talking. Clearly, I don't know what the rules are.
It's just
I guess that's
cool.
really
it's just
the simplest way to put
based.
it. Yeah, right. It's like there are no rules. It's just kind of vibey, which works until you ask one question of like, wait, why?
Yeah.
And
then my other thing I wanted to complain about is that all the scenes where they're shooting is the classic. The heroes never miss any bullets, even when they just have a random machine gun and spray horizontal. It hits every bad guy at the exact same time. 100 bullets. They're running away and they only get shot one time in the shoulder. It's just like they can't shoot a target running in a straight line in an open area. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, that shootout at the end, they're seriously like 50 feet apart. All of them would have been dead on both sides. They all would have been killing each other. They're way too close for them not to be hitting more bullets.
Yeah, I just the shootout stuff fucking sucked, man. I hated it.
And
so
another
much.
thing, one of the sassy New Yorker gets shot, and you think like, oh man, he died. Nope, he's fine. He's got a bandage on, and he's playing poker at the end of the movie. So like, all these characters are getting injured, but it's of no consequence. The only one who actually dies is Lieutenant Ford,
and the
Wyatt
camera
Russell's
guy.
character. Yeah, and the camera guy who actually gets killed. So I guess there's some casualties, but
it's almost all front loaded.
Yeah.
And I do like that like basically the movie ends with Boyce reporting in that they successfully completed their mission, but just says that there's nothing down there and to like let the secret be buried with all that. And I was like, yeah, that's fine, but I was just not very satisfied by the end, and like I don't know, it just felt, I was just kind of like whatever about the ending, and then it just bleh. And it just, there's so much potential in the beginning, and that's, like I said, the more I talk about it, the more I'm sure, yeah, it's like a 2 for me.
Yeah, the potential of the beginning is what made the rest of it so much worse.
Yeah, and the super soldier fight wasn't very interesting. Like, it just
not at all.
It's like, oh, cool, I love Marvel action sequences where everyone's just flying and
two immortal beings punching each other and throwing each other repeatedly.
I love the concept that, like, I'm supposed to be like, oh, wince when they get thrown into an object when they're both super soldiers and they both act as if they were just tossed into, like, it doesn't mean anything. These fights are so stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate superhero. So... Like, the stuff that's only interesting in superhero fights in comic books is because you can draw and stuff and looks really cool. It's not awesome when you just have two guys who are just strong throwing each other into concrete and it not be like, and then they shot through 600,000 buildings and have that explode, because that's fun in like a wild way. To sell tension, it doesn't mean anything. I hate that so much. That's my hot take.
Yeah, that's the classic problem with these the immortal characters. Yeah, it's weird. This director, Jules Avery, I think is his name, or
I had not.
Yeah, he hasn't done much. Julius Avery. Yeah, he basically needed to. He wanted to make the zombie horror movie, but he is better equipped to make a war movie. Because the beginning half was so much better. I don't know. Fuck, dude. Now I'm confused because both halves were in a vacuum were good, and if they were extended to full movies, would have been good. He should have just made Overlord Part 1 and 2. I don't know. But
it's too bad that he didn't end up doing something else, because I feel like there was a lot of potential in it, and I think it's obvious there's a lot of high points. The high points in this were very high. That's why it feels weird to shit on it for so much. It's just like, this movie actually was better than a lot where I felt kind of frustrated instead of like kind of like apathy, where I don't really care that I didn't like it. I was like frustrated that I wasn't liking it more. So I'm just like, that's how I know it's potential to be much better in the future.
Having said everything we've said, I still would recommend people watch this.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And that's the tough part. It's like, I have very specific quips and qualms that don't take a huge part of it, and it's still like just cliches aren't like that offensive. They're like kind of eye rolly. There's some cliche stuff to it, but like, it is a movie that I think if you're interested in like the premise, I think it's still a pretty good watch. Just not as good as I hoped.
Yeah, like Jake, you know how in our last podcast he mentioned that he has this issue where he sort of judges a movie on what it could be or what he wishes it was rather than on its own merits. And this movie feels like that's what we're doing, where we're judging it on what it could have been. But I think it's not quite like that, because based on its own merits, the movie feels confused. And the split of half and half war movie, half zombie horror movie is what made it so much worse. So, you know, it sounds like we're critiquing it on what it should have been, but it's more like, you know, we saw both halves of the movie, and it just did both halves more poorly than it should have.
Yeah.
If it just extended either one to be the whole movie. So it's still fun. Like, you'll still have a good time watching it, for sure. And if you don't care nearly as much as we do, because we tend to be like critical and care about things more. But
if you don't ask the follow-up questions, a lot of the red flags aren't apparent to you. So it's like, if you just are kind of taking it at a surface level, I think it actually probably stands up pretty well. But if you're too like critical or thinking about it too hard, I think it falls apart in a lot of like little ways that add up over time.
Yes, that's a really good way to put it.
All right. Well,
yeah, just don't ask questions. Watch it knowing that it's going to be a little wishy-washy and a bit silly, but it's got some cool set pieces. It's got some great action. It's got some not so great action, but you know, you kind of root for the characters, and it's a fun time.
The ending is about as like kind of positive as you could based on the premise of the movie. You know, a couple main characters die, but they win in the end, and like there's not even an implication that like there's more evil afoot. So it's
there's no like winky sequel bait or anything like that.
Yes.
It is self-contained, so I
like,
respect it for that as well.
And it's not too like I think it's actually surprisingly not like as we describe it. It sounds like it's a lot more nasty and hard to watch than it really is.
It's actually not gory.
Yeah.
It really isn't gory.
So well, that's Overlord. I think about
There it
2 out
is.
of 5 for me. So that's all.
Yeah, it's the classic letterboxd like low stars, but you give it the heart like thing because like you have fun watching it, but critically it could have been way better, and it did a lot of things kind of poorly, but you still had fun watching it, and I would still recommend other people watch it.
Word.
That's it, guys. Overlord. Catch you later.
All right. Bye bye.